voice of the Mavs, the great Chuck Cooperstein.
He's a big everything guy.
He is a big everything guy. He's into every sport.
I remember years ago, we're talking 21 years ago, something like that, and I remember him giving an in-depth breakdown of St. Joe's basketball and talking about how Pat Carroll was going to be an X factor. It wasn't all about Delonte West and Jameer Nelson.
Carroll.
Yeah, I think he was talking to you, actually. This was on this KSN day. So
God.
Anyway, yeah.
Coop, good morning. How are you?
Okay. Survived the tornadoes up here last night. We're good to go.
Oh.
It's a beautiful day here in Oklahoma City.
Okay, so were you guys in harm's way?
No. We had some big wind. Definitely big wind came in about 11:45 and lasted probably about 45 minutes. But it's bad when the announcement comes over the in-house feed in your room. Please go to an interior room, like your bathrooms. Stay away from windows and all that kind of stuff.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, glad everyone's safe. Before we get into the Mavs Thunder series, how stunning is what Minnesota's doing to you?
What happened in game one was not surprising. That was a really competitive game. What they did last night was just punk them, and it reminded me a bit of when the Mavericks took out the Lakers in 2011. The first game was a close game. Obviously, the Mavericks rallied from a big deficit, and they survived the Kobe three-pointer at the Horn to win by 2. And then the second game in L.A., they just punked them and held them to 80 points and won by 14 and, took control of the series and obviously went on to sweep the Lakers and end their championship run. And I just wonder if this is not what we're seeing here from Minnesota. It was awesome. Absolutely awesome. You cannot play more perfectly on the defensive end than Minnesota played last night.
Is this really going to be? I know everybody's already talking about him as like a super stud, and the MJ comparisons just will not stop lately. But is this going to be like the real kind of changing of the guard and coming out party, you think, for Anthony Edwards, just what he's doing in this postseason?
Oh yeah, I think so. He's improved every year. He's still not a great three-point shooter. I think that's the thing that probably needs the most work in his game, kind of like Jordan. But again, Jordan never was really asked to shoot threes back when he played. But the way he carries himself, the way he is just so incredibly competitive. It's funny because remember when he got drafted, he had that line about how he loved football more than he loved basketball, and it freaked everybody out.
Yep.
Well, I think he's loving basketball pretty much right now, and I think whatever concerns there were pretty much misplaced.
How, one of the questions that seemed to be pressing with the Mavericks at the end of the Clippers series and then sort of was forgotten after he went out and had a big-time performance, and I'm curious how much it's lingering now. How healthy is Luka Doncic, you think, to start this series?
I don't think he's perfect. That's not realistic to expect. But the fact that he's probably getting 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week treatment probably has him in a better place than he would be ordinarily. I think this series is going to be a little bit easier for him. And certainly his track record against Oklahoma City would suggest that his numbers and his efficiency, should look a lot better. I think the Clippers did a great job. I really do. I think they really mixed up the coverages on him. And then to his credit, I think he was patient enough to see what was happening. And, Kyrie obviously is able to take over the second half of games, but you had Derek Jones have a couple of big games, and P.J. Washington had a couple of big games, and Gafford finally got off the schneid in Game 6. Lively had some really good games in the series too. So, he's taking his shots, and those shots haven't fallen, especially the three-pointers, the way we've become accustomed to seeing. But I don't think you could play defense the way he's played defense in these 6 games, and not say that he's at least more than functional out there. But I don't think he's perfect by any stretch.
Coop, if you were to go back and you look, at the history of this league, the Thunder it doesn't set up well for them right now, right? You don't usually come out of nowhere, win 50-plus games, and then go on this long postseason run your first time out. Maybe like Bill Walton's Portland team did it, but like Shaq didn't do it in Orlando, right? I mean, it took a little bit of a while. Even this Thunder team back, a decade plus ago, it took a year. This would be kind of surprising if they just kind of woke up and went to the West Finals, right?
Yeah, you don't normally make that type of jump, but they're an unusual group. They really are. They play differently. They really don't believe in that rebounding matters a whole lot. They're especially offensive rebounding doesn't matter at all. I mean, they're among the worst offensive rebounding teams in the league, but then again, they shoot pretty much better than anybody else. So there aren't that many offensive rebounds to have, but they are really built as much as any team has been in this modern era of positionless basketball. Right, you've got a 6'3" small forward in Lugenstort. You got a 6'5" power forward in Jalen Williams. You got a 6'8" off guard in Josh Giddey, who also doubles as a ball handler. Shea is 6'6". Holmgren is 7'1", and he does defend the rim like a big should. But he's not really playing with his back to the basket. He's out there, playing beyond the arc, and they're playing 5-out ball, and it's giving them space, and they obviously are able to switch pretty much everything defensively. It's what everybody wants to do. I'm not necessarily a big fan of that style of defense, but it definitely has worked for them, and you see their almost collegiality in when they do win in their post-game interviews, and who's ever supposedly the one that television wants to talk to, well, there are 4 other guys around that guy. Right, it's really pretty cool to watch. And Mark Daigneault, their coach, is he's the coach of the year, and he's pretty creative, and especially on out of bounds plays and whatnot. So this is going to be a challenge for the Mavericks for sure. But I do think that the Mavericks match up a lot better with them in many ways than they would say when they're playing what would appear to be Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals. They'll be able to rebound. They should be able to win that by a significant margin. And you would think also that the lob and vertical game is going to be there, off of the pick and rolls with Lively and Gafford, forcing Holmgren to make decisions. And if he has to come out and play that, Luka certainly can throw it over the top, and those guys can jam it in.
We're talking with the voice of the Mavericks, Chuck Cooperstein, here on 105 through the Fan. Coop, obviously the Maxi Kleber injury at the end of the series was a big blow, just from the perspective of, he was making some big threes for them, and the defensive IQ and the way that he contributes on that side of the court. How do you think that the Mavericks respond to that in terms of what their rotation? Is it just going to be more Derek Lively? How do the Mavericks respond in their rotation not having Maxi Kleber?
Yeah, I think what you saw in the second half of Game 6 is pretty much what you're going to see, at least as far as the bigs go, because you don't necessarily have to play big in this series. As opposed to, again, playing against Denver and Minnesota, you need to be as big as you can possibly be. That would become problematic. But here, you really don't. This is a different kind of series. But I do think his defensive IQ will be missed. And I think that's a good point that you raised. Especially when he was playing power forward and Lively and Gafford, either one of those are in the game. They've been really, really good at that end. And I don't know how you can really replace that. Because you just don't have that size. Tim Hardaway's back tonight. He's probably going to, he'll definitely, get some run here early. They're going to have to find a way to score some points off the bench. Maxi gave them that, certainly in Game 5, with the 15-point game. But Hardaway's got to be able to play like he played in December and January, not like he played from February through the end of the regular season.
Coop.
But I will say one of his best games coming down the stretch of the season was here against the Thunder on that second night of the back-to-back when Luka didn't play. And Hardaway had 23, and he shot the ball really well. And he's more than capable of it. We just need to see it.
Coop, going back to the other games they played against Thunder this year, like you just mentioned, how did they use Dort defensively?
Well, Dort guards Luka. I mean, that's what they want to do. But again, all of this talk is so overrated because everybody switches. Mm-hmm. Everybody switches. It's not like guys are really trying to fight through screens. And with the Thunder being, pretty much all around that same size, save for Holmgren, they pretty much pass guys off to one another. And so I don't know, is Dort going to be fighting over screens set by Gafford and Lively? I don't know that he's going to do that. I don't know how that's going to work. But I think it would be advisable, frankly, for Dort, who is thick. He's built like a strong safety, to get up into Luka as much as you can get up into him and affect his passes. I mean, Luka's a lot taller. He may be able just to throw it over the top of him, but you just can't give him room to throw those passes because otherwise that's a dunk. And we saw that certainly in that game in February, which is the one game where pretty much everybody was in this game. The other three games in the series were really weird this year. Kyrie and Hardaway didn't play in the first game, the game when the Mavericks scored 30 straight points to come from 24 down to take the lead, ultimately lose. Luka didn't play in the game here in mid-March. And then, the last game of the year was ridiculous and nobody played. So, I mean, there's one game where everybody showed up and the Mavericks won by 35, but what that means tonight, I have absolutely no idea, and I don't think it means a whole lot.
Coop, do you think that there's any chance that if, like Luka's size starts bothering Dort in any sort of way, like do they put a longer defender like Jalen Williams on him?
But again, they can do that, but their philosophy is to switch. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, I don't read too much into individual defensive matchups and things like that. Even, listen, how do the Mavericks play against Williams and Gilgeous-Alexander? I mean, does PJ guard? Who does PJ guard? Who does Derrick Jones guard? I mean, that's, we talk about that a lot, but ultimately guys get switched. And then maybe ultimately later in the possession gets switched back on to players. The NBA tracking stats are really interesting because it'll tell you like how long a guy actually guards another guy. And when you figure that most of these players are going to be playing about 40 minutes, and you see that the average number of minutes that one guy guards another, stars and whatnot, generally is around 7. I mean, what does that tell you?
They did us no favors with the Stars and Mavs going up against her, did they not?
Well, the schedule makers didn't.
Right.
The schedule makers. Everybody's got their, they've got their own ox to gore. So, keep your, I guess, your choice, one TV, or if you're lucky enough to have 2 TVs in the same room. I don't when I'm at home, but your computer screen is your friend tonight for sure.
Yes, it is. Have a good call tonight, brother.
Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Chuck Cooperstein.